Who is the most underrated actor of all time?
It's Dolph Lundgren.
Correct. Why?
Well, because of his spiky hair, and his ice-cold demeanor, and his big muscles.
Absolutely.
I must break you. The guilty will be punished.
My name is Sergeant Andrew Scott.
Come on, guys, don't do this. If I don't get breakfast, I get real grumpy. I don't think you like me grumpy. And you go in pieces, asshole.
Let's kick some ass.
Hello and welcome back to I Must Break This Podcast, the fan podcast looking at the cinematic career of action legend Dolph Lundgren. Today, we're going back 4 years and looking at the 2018 action thriller Blackwater. In this one, Dolph reteams with fellow action star Jean-Claude Van Damme. Only this time, instead of being adversaries, they're now actually on the same side. Jean-Claude Van Damme stars as Scott Wheeler, a deep-cover CIA operative who finds himself locked aboard a CIA blacksite submarine. Dolph stars as Marco, a fellow operative also imprisoned, who helps Wheeler escape their underwater prison.
You know how this works, so I'll keep it simple. You're an enemy combatant and will not be granted any rights.
This won't go anywhere.
Welcome to hell.
Lock down this boat right away.
The man's a highly decorated officer and a trained killer. He's been taught to adapt, improvise.
Just find him.
I need you to tell me what is going on right now.
Someone is setting me up. It's time to level the playing field. I believe we should get you one of these.
I knew I liked you. Let's do this.
In the old days, it was just red wire, blue wire.
I'm your host, Sean, and returning to the show to help me chat this one, it's been a while, is David Ullman, host of the podcast Long Walk for a Short Drink. David, thank you so much for coming back on, man.
Thanks for having me. Hey, Sean.
So, I mean, it's been, has it been, 2 years since the last time we chatted? I want to say, or it's just shy of that, right?
Yeah, I was thinking about it myself, and I'm not super sure, but it both feels like forever ago and yesterday, one of those things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and we should probably let the listeners know, the last time I had you on was for the last Jean-Claude Van Damme and Dolph pairing, which was Universal Soldier Regeneration. I extended the invite for this one for you because I know that, I mean, look, I'm a huge fan of both these guys, but I know that you adore Mr. JCVD. And so I kind of had it in my mind. I was like, look, I really want David back. I think this would be the perfect pairing for us to come on. I feel kind of bad though. I feel like we missed out on an opportunity. What we really should have done is you should have found some kind of drink that was Belgian. I should have found a drink that was Swedish to really, really align and make this a real Clash of the Titans, I guess.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have to pretend.
So, well, again, thank you very, very much for coming back. I guess before we dip into this film, I'm just curious, what's new with you? I know we talked about it on the last podcast, but on the last episode, but Long Walk for a Short Drink, that particular series is still running, right?
We actually stopped doing it at the end of last year at our episode 100. We just decided that we were going to I don't know, pause it indefinitely. And so my friend Palmer, with whom I co-hosted that show, and some of the guys that would come on regularly, we still gather on a video call, just in the same way. We just don't record it, and it's not quite as organized. But yeah, so the podcast is happening offline, I suppose.
Okay. Have you considered starting anything new? I mean, look, I'll just throw it out there. I think a Jean-Claude Van Damme retrospective filmography analysis would be right up your alley. Have you considered going that route?
I might, except for there were two similar type shows. Both had pod worked into his name. But the Jean Pod Van Damme cast that was on the Pod Bros network for quite a few years. I have been a guest on that show from time to time, and now they're at a place where I help them archive their run on YouTube, so folks can listen to that run that goes through his films chronologically, and on the Pod Bros YouTube channel. And then each time he's in a new movie, which has only happened twice in the last couple of years since they had finished their run, the John and Jeff invite me on, and we kind of keep that going.
Right on. Well, that's an excellent segue there, because again, and I don't want to sleep on this, but I know that you were a huge fan of Mr. Van Damme growing up, as were so many. I mean, as was I. In fact, I distinctly remember seeing films like Street Fighter and The Quest, in theaters, their opening weekend. So, I'm right there with you. But I wanted to get your take real quick before we dive into this film. I wanted to get your take on the current state of where Mr. JCVD is at career-wise. I have a few theories myself, but I wanted to get your opinion and your take. But his career is pretty much, I don't know how you want to refer to it. I think he's kind of stepped into a bit of a semi-retirement, I guess we could say. He seems to have kind of put a lot of things on pause, and like I said, I have some theories about this on why this could be happening, but I wanted to get your take on what has been going on with Mr. JCVD, and I think that could kind of help explain his placement in this film as well.
Yeah, I haven't followed his career as closely the last so many years as I used to. I have a 2.5-inch 3-ring binder with plastic sleeves that I kept as a kid in the late 80s, early 90s, where I put all his inside karate clippings and stuff. And that was the heyday of my fandom. And I kept up throughout, the following decades and stuff, but less closely, to the point where there's a few I haven't seen in the mid 2000s or so. But it's funny because this year, 2018, that Blackwater came out, which incidentally I missed until watching it for the podcast here. But JC, as I call him,
that's right. So yeah, well, the friend with the binder. I think you're more than allowed to give him a nickname, considering you have a binder.
That's right. I'm not allowed to come within so many feet, though. So there's that.
Yeah.
But 2018, within a 14-month period, he had 4 films come out, and this being the first of them. So, and most of them were more prominent starring roles than had started to be the case. And so, while I think I sense, or I agree a little bit with what you were saying about a kind of semi-retirement, because he'll show up in movies and it's not for very long, or he'll do these voice cameos, and he's made really good use, I think, of kind of poking fun at himself, really, brilliantly in the JCVD movie that came out in 2008, but then again with Jean-Claude Van Johnson, that was the series on Amazon in, I think, 2017. And actually just recently, I think it was last year, The Last Mercenary on Netflix was a really fun kind of it was literally almost like a French farce. Actually, literally almost. It was a French farce of sorts, but Van Damme played, I think, he played this CIA type agent, and he was always in disguise, but it was very often played for comedy, and it had a lot of fun about it. And I think if I had one critique of his later career, is that it was all very dour, and his lids are like half closed half the time, and he's just kind of laconic, and I don't know, it didn't have the energy and charm that he did when he was younger. And I'm really happy to see that there is a little bit of that, at least here in Blackwater. But yeah, that's kind of what I've observed the last few years.
Yeah, well, point of contrition here, I'll just admit it right now. I actually didn't finish The Last Mercenary. I started it, and I wanted to finish it. I wanted to like it, but for the life of me, I just could not. I couldn't do it. And I think a lot of it is because I know, and I'm sorry. I'm glad to hear that you enjoyed it. I just did not find, and I think what a lot of it is, to be perfectly honest, I'll just admit it. I think what a lot of it is the fact that this was a French film that was made for French audiences, and I think French humor does not translate always 100% well with American audiences. So I think maybe that was part of the reason. It's one that I realize I need to go back and I need to check out, because like you said, if you look at his career and the films that he had done, I mean, yeah, he was, I've been saying this for the past couple of years. I think that Jean-Claude is essentially kind of in a semi-retirement. You know what I mean? He's just, I don't think his drive is there as much as it used to be. And like I said, I have a few theories for this. And so, yeah, from about 2014 to 2018 or so. Yeah, like you said, he was taking on small bit roles that were essentially really just playing off his image, I guess we can say. But with The Last Mercenary, yeah, he seemed a little bit more alive once again, but there were still so many scenes where it was like, that's not Jean-Claude. Like, I can tell that's a stunt double there. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
That one is it is a very particular tone. I will totally concede that point. And if you couldn't get into it, I don't know that you need to force yourself back in to finish it.
Well, I mean, and I've kind of said this on previous episodes, but I just want to reiterate it or echo it again. I think one of the big reasons for Mr. Jean-Claude's retirement is the market and the shift, I guess we can say, that the action market has been going into. Okay, when Jean-Claude first started doing direct-to-video movies, okay, the DVD market was still pretty big and was still pretty booming. With the DVD market shrinking and largely kind of disappearing and everything going to streaming, suddenly the budgets for these films are shrinking way, way, way down. And so I think for a guy like Jean-Claude, who went from at one time starring in films that were being made for between 30 to 50 million, suddenly starring in a film that is being made for barely 2 million, if that even, of course he's not going to be on set for more than a few days. And of course, when he's there, like you said, I love what you said, as you said it on the last episode, his lids barely look half open. And yeah, he's playing tired in a lot of these films. He's playing very, very dour, and it seems like he's almost kind of sleepwalking in a lot of these roles. And I think a lot of that is because, I mean, when he did the film In Hell, that was him playing dour, and we had never seen that really before from him. So there was, at that time, it was a bit of a revelation, but who would have thought that 10, 15 years later, he would still be playing these just quiet, stone-faced badasses who barely even blink? And if you look at Jean-Claude from like the Double Impact era, where he's just so goofy and charismatic and smiling, to what we have, within the past 10 years, it's like, man, that's a bit of a shift there.
Yeah, I think from what I could tell, it seems like he tries to step out of that. Like even in 2013, I think it was that year, he did a movie called Welcome to the Jungle, where he's like front and center on the poster, and he plays a comedic character. And I think a lot of the stuff he's come to do with it, making fun of his own image, is attempts to try new things. But I think ultimately it's like, I did hear him talk about this somewhere, where he's like, there's so many pictures of me with the same, he didn't say stupid face, but he said something like that, same like blank expression on a poster. And I think he said something to the effect of just like, that's all that that's what would get movies made. So it wasn't necessarily like what he wanted to do, but it was all people would kind of let him do. And I think even this movie is, I was surprised to see, because without getting into it too much, I liked it more than I thought I would. And I really feared that it would be something along the lines of his, like, what's this 2001 or 2 movie Derailed, where it was on like a train. And I think some folks dislike that movie even more than I do. I just saw it the once. I mean, of course I own it, but I don't think I pulled it out again. But I worried it was going to be this kind of like ultra low budget and hands off. I thought he would just be in it. I kind of thought he would be in it about as much as Dolph turned out to be. So I was pleased to see him engage that much. But it was his company, Rodan Entertainment, that like is one of the producers and developed it. So he seemed to have some investment in at least bringing this to the screen, though I did hear your interviews with both Patrick Kilpatrick and Chad Law, the villain and writer, respectively, of this film. And so I have those stories kind of in the back of my head as well for whatever happened once cameras started to roll. So I don't know.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for listening to those. And yeah, Patrick Kilpatrick, man, that dude, I was a little scared and a little intimidated talking to him.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I mean,
I was scared for you.
But, boy, that guy, he does not mince words one bit. He says what's on his mind. And, he's gone in later interviews where he speaks about working with Jean-Claude, where he kind of alludes to there being some brain damage or whatever. And I, of course, don't want to speak on that. I don't want to speculate on that or anything, because that's not my place. But yeah, he's kind of alluded to that might be kind of what's going on with Mr. Jean-Claude. And I remember he said something else in the interview that was interesting, is that sorry about my dog upstairs. But he made 2 comments. Of them here. There you go. But he made comments where he basically said that Jean-Claude had trouble remembering his lines, and it was difficult for him to even get out of his trailer. And so as a result, they're shooting his scenes separately. And so Patrick Kilpatrick is essentially having to talk to like a tennis ball on a stick. You know what I mean? Yes. And so you hear that, and it's kind of like, I don't know, it's a bit of a gut punch, you know what I mean? To your heart, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing that stuck out to me that he said, that Patrick Kilpatrick said on the podcast, was when he said he saw Jean-Claude as a tragic figure ravaged by his excesses. That wording like really like stuck out at me, and that bummed me out, because I sort of, as someone who's followed his career, like I remember, as a kid, reading his interviews and stuff, it was all about, health and exercise and all this. So as he rose to the top of sort of the Hollywood, well, not quite to the top, but, upper echelons of the Hollywood food chain, he got rather wrapped up in a lot of the trappings of that lifestyle. And as that would come out in like the press, it was a little, I don't know, a little disillusioning, I guess, for, to be his fan. But then it seemed like he would kind of come out of it and like be, back to his old self again. And I think he's probably ridden that roller coaster ever since, is the sense I get. And the other thing that I obviously I am not a doctor, and I don't know him personally. I'm not allowed to come within so many feet of him, but I do know he suffers from bipolar depression that was, I think, undiagnosed for a long time. And so part of me wonders, that I don't know what the medications are like for that exactly, but I have to imagine that it levels or balances things out, so the highs aren't so high and the lows maybe aren't so low. And so I don't know if, like, does he then go off those meds when he's trying to act? And if so, is that the kind of thing that's keeping him in his trailer and forcing, the Sandman to act against a C-stand with a tennis ball on it? I don't know. It's just a lot of conjecture. And I guess I just was disappointed because from the outer sort of projection of what he's done through social media, that his mom runs his social media. Perhaps that has something to do with the clean image, but it seemed like he had his act together a bit better in recent years. But then like I'd hear little things that would make me wonder otherwise. And of course I think Patrick Kilpatrick was doing his best to be diplomatic and generous and kind, but he was also trying not to, because I did notice in the scene that they shared in that room, the interrogation room, the only time that when there was a third actor present, there was a couple wide shots, but otherwise I noticed that they were never in the same like profile or master shot together. There was like one reflection shot where they were both in it, but you can kind of fake that. And so, it's the whole tragic figure ravaged by his excesses is really just kind of caught in my craw.
Well, and yeah, I mean, and what's interesting, I don't know if you picked up on this. This is going to be one of my points in my notes, but yeah, it's really interesting how, if you notice, especially in the films of the past 10 years, Jean-Claude's son, Christopher Van, is it Van? Yeah. Has he taken on the name Van Damme, or is he still Van Varenberg? I can't remember.
That's a good question. I've maybe both at times. I don't know.
Yeah. But what's interesting is his son always pops up in bit roles, usually a lot of times as a bad guy or as a henchman that Van Damme has to fight. And so, on one hand, it's great. It's like, hey, he's getting a role for his son. All right, that's cool. But then on the other hand, you almost kind of wonder, and again, I'm purely speculating, I don't know, but I almost kind of wonder if maybe that's written into Jean-Claude's contract, in that if you hire Jean-Claude, you're going to find a role for his son. And I wonder if, just go with me on this one, but I wonder if his son is there to kind of help, to kind of work as a buffer, if you will, or a middleman, if you will, between Jean-Claude and the production crew. You know what I mean? I don't know.
It makes a little sense. I mean, I hate to keep talking about him in this way of conjecture, but I don't get the chance to very often. It's unfortunate that this will be heard publicly, so I'll try to temper it. But I love like special edition Blu-rays, all the kind of like firsthand behind the scenes information about movies I can get. I'm all excited about. And so a couple years ago, there was a Double Impact deluxe Blu-ray edition that came out with a bunch of behind the scenes stuff. And Sheldon Lettich, the director of that movie and the writer of Bloodsport, and someone who worked with Jean-Claude a lot in the early part of his career, he didn't use the word bipolar, but he talked about Jean-Claude as being this guy who you didn't know who you were going to get, like which Van Damme you were going to get day to day, and that's where that two characters of Alex and Chad came from, as they were developing that story. And I think that's kind of interesting. And yeah, there's a lot of people in his early movies that show up, that seem to be kind of family friends, like the Michel Kisi that played Tom Poe and his brother. And I think he's a loyal guy. But your theory about the son kind of offering some, I don't know, maybe support to his dad. I know he travels with his little dog as well.
Yeah.
Maybe something like that. But I was happy to see Chris in this. It looks like he is going by Van Damme in the credits of this one. And I thought he looked badass with that beard and bald head.
Oh, he's taken after his dad in terms of martial arts prowess and abilities. I mean, when he throws down in those scenes, I don't know if you saw Kill 'Em All or not. That was another small little film that's, yeah. So
the one that you talked about really liking, is it 6 Bullets? I think that's from the same writer. Is it something like that? It was another I'd missed.
6 Bullets actually, and that one's actually streaming on Netflix now, FYI. But yeah, they pair the two together. Only in 6 Bullets, what's interesting is Chris is not he's not an adversary or a henchman. He's Jean-Claude. Actually, in that one, now that I think about it, he plays Jean-Claude's son, actually, who partners with him on various missions. But awesome. But yeah, I mean, you already said it, so I just want to echo it again. What I will say about this film that was kind of nice to see is, considering Jean-Claude had been taking nothing but these bit supporting roles in various films, it was really, really cool in 2018 to see JC, as you call him.
You can call him that too.
Okay, thanks, man. Him taking on a lead role again. You know what I mean? Him taking on a lead role where he is front and center. And the other thing that I will say, and this is, I mean, this is the fanboy in me, I guess we can say, but the idea of reteaming Jean-Claude with Dolph Lundgren, this is an idea that I think fans of the genre have been wanting ever since they first squared off together in 1992 in Universal Soldier. Okay. And I remember, it's funny, but I remember around 99, 2000 or so, it was around that time when Jean-Claude was starting to kind of hit the direct-to-video market. I remember at the time thinking, now is the time that would be wonderful for the two of them to do another movie together. But yeah, where they're not adversaries, but where they're joining forces, working on the same side. I thought that was really intriguing. And at the time, I always kind of liked the idea of them teaming up in like a buddy cop type movie. You know what I mean?
Oh,
like
yeah.
Like type movie.
Yeah, like Showdown in Little Tokyo, but with Van Damme.
Mm-hmm. I always thought that would have been really kind of cool. What's, I guess, kind of unfortunate about this one is, I mean, there were a few red flags about this one right out of the gate that I will just say. But when I heard that they were going to be teaming up once again for a project, I was like, yes, that sounds like a great idea. I'm looking forward to it. Maybe perhaps it's a little late in their careers, but that's fine. I will take it. The problem with me was that it's set on a submarine. And at the time, I remember thinking like, okay, in the late 90s, early 2000s, when the direct-to-video market the DVD market was really, really big, I mean, shoot, we saw tons of these low-budget movies set on submarines. And so for them to be relying on that again in 2018, for me, that did not do much for my excitement at all. And sadly, I think a lot of those fears kind of came to fruition when I watched the film.
Yeah, I was a little worried too. I think that idea of it just being, underwater in this contained thing, and I guess the little press type pictures I'd seen did have me fearing that it was going to be this kind of really just dark and depressing. And it's a little long for this kind of movie, at least like on paper. And
it does.
Oh boy, so
this should be. You're right. This should be a 90-minute movie. Yeah, this should be a 90-minute movie, and it goes on at least 15 more minutes than it really needs to.
And it would have been nice to get him and Dolph working together sooner, because that was a real, like, when that happened, I was like, oh, because I watched up until a certain point, maybe like 45 minutes or close to an hour in, and then I was getting really tired, and I tried to go to bed, but then some people in my neighborhood were, I don't know what was going on. They were having the largest party of the year. And so I literally couldn't sleep. So I was like, all right, I'll come out and get this going again. And then I'll
finish this damn movie for Sean's podcast.
Yeah. Well, but then it got like kind of more interesting. And he was like winking at Dolph. I was like, okay, I'm on board for this. Like, put this like earlier and cut off 15 minutes of, I don't know what, but it was weird. It wasn't like two different movies exactly, but it didn't all quite congeal, as tightly as I think would have been nice. But yeah, do you want to kind of go through the plot or just talk about it in general?
Well, yeah, actually, and before we go down either of those avenues, the one thing that I want to say about this real quick, I don't know if you picked up on this or not either, but did you see Escape Plan from 2013 with Schwarzenegger and Stallone?
No, I'm not even sure I've heard of that, but I'm suddenly interested.
Oh my goodness. Okay, all right. So what's interesting is, in 2013, a film came out called Escape Plan, which put Sylvester Stallone and Arnold Schwarzenegger together in a film. And so I'm surprised you haven't heard of it. I think it's worth checking out. It has a few problems with it, but I think Schwarzenegger is a lot of fun in it. Stallone is really cool. I mean, and there's just a certain kind of novelty that, in seeing Stallone and Schwarzenegger occupying the same space on screen that is just wonderful to see. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I would recommend you check that out. But here's what's interesting about it. Okay. This film parallels Escape Plan almost identically to the T. Okay. Oh. Only what's interesting is, and my buddy Chris kind of coined this term, so I don't want to take credit for it, but this film is pretty much the junior varsity version of Escape Plan. Okay, so if you watch Escape Plan, I mean, the parallels between the two are so identical. You almost kind of wonder if Chad Law saw Escape Plan and, you know, was just kind of, I don't know. But Stallone's character in Escape Plan is put into a blacksite high-tech prison where he teams up with a fellow prisoner who's already there, who is Arnold Schwarzenegger, and the two of them team up and hatch a plan to get out of this high-tech prison.
It's the most advanced prison ever built. Its location is top secret. And when they erase your identity, you cease to exist.
Who were you before you came in here?
I break out of prisons for a living.
The people who paid for you to be here want you here forever.
The only way to stay alive is to break out.
I'm gonna burn this place to the ground.
Let's do it. Escape Plan.
Which, just by me telling you that premise, that is the exact same thing we have going on here in this one. Only Stallone is the Jean-Claude character. Dolph Lundgren is the Arnold Schwarzenegger character. Both these stories obviously take place on these blacksite prisons that are kind of under the radar. You have in Escape Plan. You have Schwarzenegger. He's the resident prisoner showing Sly around, who's new to the prison. This film is basically following those exact beats. But you know what? Here's the big problem, in my opinion, with both of these stories, is that they came way too late. Okay? I mean, I think if you're going to put, you know, these two icons together in a film, pull a Universal Soldier and do it when the two guys are in their prime. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it reminds me, because I was, what did I listen to? Oh, your Expendables 2 episode was so much fun for me, because I was not expecting you and your guest to be so pro Van Damme in that movie. I don't know. I thought it'd just be a bit more
he's
balanced.
Wonderful in it. Yeah.
Your excitement, your respective excitement, with you both kind of come off the bat of like, I just gotta say, like, he was great in this. And so I was just so delighted by that. And then I think you guys talked some about Universal Soldier being this sort of first team up, you know, at least an early one of these kind of action stars that would grow into this sort of free-for-all that Stallone cultivated with the Expendables films. But yeah, it would have been nice to see more of that. I like the podcast, How Did This Get Made? And there's a lot of Van Damme and Stallone movies that are featured on that, and a lot of good-natured ribbing, and sometimes then some backstory. And I learned from that podcast that Demolition Man, that ultimately was Stallone and Wesley Snipes, was developed for Van Damme and Seagal. And somehow or other that didn't quite happen. And so it's like, it's so, man, these things that, so I wonder how much, like, you know, people try to get going and then just doesn't pan out for one reason or other. And so much changes. And it was very interesting hearing Chad Law talk about, you know, this movie and even how he got into writing to begin with. But if I'm remembering correctly, wasn't he given like the assignment to write a movie that took place on a submarine? Something like
exactly.
That.
Yeah, well, that's an awesome segue there, because, I have a sneaking suspicion about this, but I suspect that this was a script that Jean-Claude and Dolph were more or less pigeonholed into, because I mean, you would think, okay, if you're putting together a film where you're putting these two, I'm going to use a term that you said when we discussed regeneration, but rarefied beings. Okay, I remember you said that, but yeah, I mean, if you're gonna take an idea, put together a movie with these two rarefied beings together, then I would think put something together that is tailor-made and is written for each of these actors' strengths. I will say, though, and this is just my opinion, I don't know if you felt this or not, but I feel like because the location is so confined, I mean, it takes place on a submarine. You know what I mean? There's not much you can really do with the submarine. I think that Jean-Claude and Dolph are merely just kind of going through the motions. And if this was written at the forefront, and this is no discredit to Mr. Chad Law by any means, but I think I would like to think that if he had known from the offset of, hey, we have Dolph for 7 days, we have Jean-Claude for 15 days, I would like to think that he would have said, well, you know what, I'm going to create I'm going to create characters that's going to play to their strengths. But unfortunately, I mean, we don't see enough of Dolph, and what we do see of Van Damme, he doesn't really get to do a whole lot of kicking. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that was bumming me out until it finally kicked in, pun always intended, late in the game. But even that, it was not quite the, there's not much spin and kicks. I don't know. I know he's got to try to keep it more grounded these days, sometimes literally on the ground, but come on. Give me a little, Jean-Claude. Give me a little back spin kick.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if we just go through the plot real quick, I mean, there's not, to be honest with this one, David, there's really not much that we can say or that we can add. I mean, Jean-Claude plays Scott Wheeler, who's he's this deep cover operative, a very rote and basic role. It almost feels like something that Steven Seagal would play, just he's a CIA operative, if you will. The film opens with Jean-Claude. He's waking up in a dark room on a submarine. He's imprisoned. It's been deemed a CIA quote unquote black site. And his neighbor in the film is played by Dolph Lundgren. Okay. He's playing the character named Marco. Marco has obviously been there considerably longer than Jean-Claude. And what's so cool about the way Dolph is playing this, and this is one of those things that I wonder if maybe when Dolph came on board, he I've heard and I've spoken to various individuals that have kind of alluded to when Dolph comes on set, he loves to add little nuances to his character. And so with this one, Dolph, his character Marco, is almost Zen-like. He likes to read literature, and he kind of makes these personal drawings around his cell that kind of are like his wallpaper, if you will. And I'd like to think that those little touches were on Dolph's behalf.
You got a name?
Marco.
Okay, I'm Scott. How can I get out of here?
You don't. Well, unless you're a fan of body bags. Oh. So you're about to meet Weddle and Dax.
Stand back and turn around. Step back, hands on the wall.
I want to speak to someone in charge.
Hands on the wall now!
Look, put someone in.
Hey, Dax. Come on, Dax. Take it easy. This first day.
You want a piece of this too, Marco?
It's been a while since I felt a woman's touch. Show me your pecs, baby.
Yeah, I like to think that too. I mean, he did do a lot with a little with this one, and really, he was the one with all the charm, I thought, and it was a real breath of fresh air every time we did get to see him, even though it was so often just like in a shot that was obviously done like on a day that the other person wasn't there for a lot of the incel type stuff. But yeah, he was great in this. Like anyone who's a fan of his, I'm sure it'd be like, just give us more of that and less of whatever this sort of plot that they're trying to wrap it all in.
Obviously, it's going to start off with Jean-Claude in this cell, if you will. It then goes to a flashback, scene where we get to see, this is what Wheeler was on. This was his previous assignment that led him to being imprisoned. I have quite a few thoughts on these particular scenes. I wanted to get your take on them, but let's just run through them real quick. Okay. So Wheeler's previous assignment is in Mobile, Alabama. His partner on assignment is also his love interest. This is one of those aspects that's interesting. The gal playing his partner and love interest, the actress's name is Courtney B. Turk. She is, let's just say it, she's young enough to be his daughter. And it's
exactly what I thought. It creeped me way out.
It's so creepy because, it's really this disturbing trend, I would say, especially within these low-budget action movies, where it seems like the action stars are getting older and older, but for some reason these producers feel that it's like they're afraid to cast a female over the age of 30. And so it's just really interesting. You mentioned Derailed, and the one thing that I remember about Derailed that I really, really appreciated about that one was the actress who they cast as Jean-Claude's wife in that one was of age, and it worked. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't know if you remember that or not.
I can't remember her specifically, but I was thinking about that whole age thing, and I get these things are probably all like pre-sold in foreign territories, and they have to have certain things, and so it's just kind of, it's so unfortunate. But if you think about Universal Soldier, so Ally Walker she's not an unattractive woman by any means, but she's not this sort of cookie cutter, she didn't look like every other indistinguishable actress, of a certain age at 1992, she had a distinct quality about her and unique charm, and she was funny and ballsy, and it was great. And she had the actresses in this movie, like, I hate to say bad things about her, but you got the Megan Fox character we'll talk about later, and then this one who played his love interest, and it was just like, it was rough. It was rough.
It's especially grotesque how the camera in the film feels the need to kind of linger on her as she's changing. Yeah, you know what I mean?
And that shot was in the trailer. Ultimately, I was just like, "What are we doing here?"
Yeah,
it's like 60 years old.
Yeah. So so Wheeler and Ballard, they're on assignment. They're working deep cover, trying to find the mole in their agency. Huge shootout ensues at the motel where Wheeler and Ballard were staying. And we find out that this team of paramilitary assassins are after, wait for it, the flash drive. How many times have we seen this in these films where the MacGuffin of the film is a flash drive? Do you think that I'm just wondering, at what point in these films do you think that the flash drive is no longer going to be the sought-after instrument that drives the plot?
Oh, man. I think we're probably looking at another 5 years at least. But this one was fun because at least you had Van Damme with his accent saying, maybe not my favorite line in the movie. I don't know what that would be, but the one that caught my attention that I had to write it down, I'll just say phonetically, when he says, "I've got the dongle." It's like,
that's right.
What? I've got I had to watch it twice. I'm like, what? Oh, I've got the dongle. Don't make him say that. Come on.
And okay, so I don't want to get to the big spoiler here yet, but Melissa Ballard is killed. Okay, Wheeler is eventually drugged and imprisoned. Okay, when he wakes up, okay, this was a real welcome addition that I really liked. We see that Patrick Kilpatrick, the great Patrick Kilpatrick, Sandman from Death Warrant. Come on, this guy's dossier of villains that he's played is electric. It's just awesome to see him on screen. He turns up as the antagonist once again, and man, this is one dude. No matter how old he gets, he has that voice about him where he is just so imposing. I've always said it before, but I always thought what's interesting about Death Warrant, I don't think that Death Warrant is one of Van Damme's best movies. However, I will say that the Sandman, Patrick Kilpatrick, is one of Van Damme's best villains. Okay. Yeah. And here, his character's name is Patrick Ferris. He's the chief officer of SAD, which is the Special Activities Division. I'll get your take, but what were your thoughts on seeing Mr. Kilpatrick turn up in this film?
I had not seen him in forever. There must have been some point. I guess I did see Last Man Standing back when it came out, but when he was kind of going through the list of the various movies that he's been in and the various kind of action stars he's worked opposite, I really somehow had missed even things like Minority Report that I would like to and have meant to see. I haven't yet. So I really know him almost exclusively as the Sandman from 30 years ago. And so just to see him as an older man for the first time, and kind of just the way that he carried himself and the suit and all of that, and the more kind of subdued way, not subdued like tranquilized, but just a little bit more low key. It took some adjusting. When he says this line that I'm sure we'll talk about, I perked up, but it was so just kind of like even keeled. But he's so imposing a presence that I guess he probably doesn't need to, really turn on the energy to intimidate people. It's just kind of inherent in his, being.
Well, here's one of the big issues with that. Okay, you're going to cast, and I get why they're doing this. Okay, they're kind of trying to, I think, employ a little bit of misdirection, if you will. But spoiler here, it turns out that Wheeler, okay, so that's Van Damme's character, Wheeler's superior Rhodes is actually the one who's dirty. He kills all of the CIA interrogators, including Patrick Kilpatrick's character. And so for me, this was, already going into this, I was kind of like, all right, it takes place on a submarine. How many times have we seen that? Whatever. But then when Kilpatrick shows up, I kind of get perked up a bit. And I'm like, okay, this could be cool. Suddenly, I don't know if you felt this way or not, but once his character is killed, it's almost like the stakes for me completely went out the window. And I started to get bored with it. And I think that is a real testament. And I even told that to Kilpatrick. I was like, dude, you left the film way too early to where suddenly I quit caring about about what was going on. And I don't know if you felt that way or not, but he is such a cool, imposing presence. And for him to get killed immediately, it is shocking, I'll admit it, but he is such a great villain that the villain who comes in after him doesn't even hold a candle to what Kilpatrick does on screen.
Yeah, that was I think that's part of the appeal. You get Van Damme and Patrick Kilpatrick reunited as hero and villain, and then you throw Dolph in. It's like, this should be great. And then they kill him off in the first, 20 minutes. And I get it. The same as you said, it's like for a certain effect, but because I was trying to think to myself, like, would I have preferred then he play the guy that turns out to be the real bad guy? And, I guess that would have tipped it probably would have ruined the surprise. You'd be like, well, of course, Patrick Kilpatrick's the bad guy. But yeah, I missed him when he was gone for sure.
Well, and if we go back to the MacGuffin real quick, I don't want to lay on this either. Okay. But this is what the dongle. Yes. Sorry. The dongle. So I just want to, like I said, I don't want to lay on this. Okay. But all right, so we have Wheeler. He's suspected of treason, okay? His superiors think that he has switched sides and he is selling the desired flash drive on the black market. Apparently, it has numerous incriminating files. Of course it does, okay? That's with all of these things. So it's interesting, okay? So Melissa Ballard, okay? That was Van Damme's partner, okay? She has the flash drive, but Wheeler has the activation key. The flash drive is worthless without the activation key. Wheeler knows this, so he is hiding the key's whereabouts. And so what ensues is pretty much a lot of shooting, a lot of running. They're going through the corridors of the submarine, okay? Van Damme is running. They're trying to shoot him to get the key, to get the flash drive working. We've seen it all before. I don't know if I'd say I've seen it before, if I've seen it done more exciting before, but that's what's going on.
Can I ask I'd like to ask a really possibly dumb question about the shooting of automatic guns or any kind of guns on a submarine. Is everything just built out of, because it took me a while. I'm embarrassed to say this. It was probably like in the last, quarter of the movie where there was a lot of shooting. I was like, wait a second.
They're on a sub, yes.
Yeah, aren't you in danger of like puncturing the walls? And then if not, wouldn't that stuff just ricochet everywhere in problematic ways? So I'm going to screenshot you my notes, but that was my exact issue as well. Okay, if you're going to be set in, you would think, okay, if you're writing a film that's set on a submarine, then you know what, come up with some other instruments, I guess, that our characters can use. I don't know, knives, if you will. Yes, it's like that old line from Enter the Dragon. It's like, why doesn't somebody take a 45 and bang, settle it? It's because, you got to take that out of the equation if you want people to fight hand to hand. And you got these two brilliant martial artists in your movie, and I don't want to ever see Jean-Claude shoot a gun again in my life.
I know.
So it's just such a... I thought I was just hadn't seen enough of these kind of movies to know that it's fine. You could shoot guns on submarines, but now knowing that, it's unconscionable.
Well, no, exactly. It seems almost lazy. I mean, it came out. What's interesting is that actually it came out in the same year. But did you see Hunter Killer with Gerard Butler?
No, man, I'm out of the loop. I'm realizing.
Okay, I feel like I'm giving you your next watch list.
I appreciate
here.
though.
I hope you're writing it down.
Yeah.
So, if you see Hunter Killer, okay, Hunter Killer is not amazing by any means, okay. But what Hunter Killer does right is, okay, there is another film that is set on a submarine. But what's interesting is you're watching it, and it really, as a viewer, takes you into the submarine, and you believe that it is set on a submarine, okay, because what you have these tight confines, very, very tight confines. You have these very, very low ceilings in the film. And so it looks and feels like a submarine. With this particular film, and I don't know if you felt this way or not, but yeah, thanks to all of the crazy nonsense automatic gunfire that we see, okay, there are so many scenes where I forgot that they were even on a submarine. Okay, I forgot that they were even on a submarine. And so what the film does, it's almost kind of like, I wonder if in post-production they realized this, because what you get every 15 minutes in the film is you get a CGI exterior shot of the sub. Ooh, to kind of remind you, hey, by the way, this takes place that it's on a submarine. But yeah, I mean, that was the big thing that stuck out to me is, okay, in this particular film, you don't really have those low ceilings. You don't really have those tight confines. You have walls that appear to be made of concrete, and this is on a submarine. It's like, I'm sorry, but that is something else that's taken me out.
Yeah. I agree. And the lighting on this submarine, like I've never seen so many multicolored gels of lighting gels of like orange and green and blue, and maybe there were some purples and stuff, and they were really, they're making it look like a disco or something.
You kind of alluded to it earlier, so I just want to talk about it real quick. I will say, and maybe I'm a little biased, okay, considering the nature of the podcast. I'll admit that right now. But I think Dolph's Marco character is the best part about this film. I don't know if you felt that way or not, but you can tell, I think, for Dolph's limited screen time, I think he's collectively on screen for maybe 10 minutes, but you can tell he's having fun with what little they have given him.
He totally is, yeah. Well, I don't want us to get too far past that. Were you going to mention Patrick Kilpatrick's callback to Death Warrant in the interrogation scene? Did you catch that line?
I'll let you do it. This is your moment.
I mean, so he's threatening to like stick a needle in Van Damme's eye, and then Van Damme's so stupid. He's just like he's like, this is going to go nowhere. Like you can't possibly torture any information out of him. So Patrick Kilpatrick just is like, all right. He doesn't say that, but he just goes, welcome to hell.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I was just like, oh my, just lit up. But like, it was again, so subdued. Like, can you imagine if he was just like, welcome to hell, like in Death Warrant? I know it would have been too big, but oh, come on. Another missed opportunity, but a nice callback nonetheless. I mean, that had to have been intentional. I'm guessing from like Chad Law's script forward.
Well, and if they're going to be doing callbacks, wouldn't it have been cool if Dolph's Marco character gets a line where as soon as he, kicks the ass of one of the henchmen, he looks at him and he says, that's a spirit soldier.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, come on.
Because he could have said it to Van Damme and everything. Mm-hmm. You got to talk to Chad again, see if we can find out.
Well, that was something that Chad basically said when I spoke to him, is he was like, look, a lot of people complained that there was that they wished there was more Dolph. He goes, I wish there was more Dolph as well. And so, like I said, that kind of just goes to my theory where I wonder if what happened. I mean, this is the other part that I was going to get to here in a minute, but I do wonder if with Dolph's inclusion, if maybe that character wasn't even in the initial script, and what they realized is the production realized, hey, wait a minute, I hear that Dolph Lundgren is available for, the next 2 weeks. Let's squeeze him into this thing if we can. Let's write something in there. So, and I don't know if you kind of picked up on that or not, but I don't know. I mean, what's interesting is if you take his character out of the film, and I don't want them to, is like I said, I think he's the best part about it, but you could theoretically take this character out of the film, and I think for the most part, the film is going to play pretty similarly
Yeah, I hadn't thought of that. That's a really interesting observation. And it could be, well, I guess judging from what the writer was saying, it sounded like he was attached or involved early on, certainly before shooting. But I started to wonder, it's like, oh man, if they were having trouble getting Van Damme to the set, etc., did they introduce something like this just to help kind of, you know, if he's not going to come out of his trailer, then they can shoot Dolph, or I don't know, but that might be taking it a bit too far. But I do wonder if it were anything more than just scheduling that prevented it from being a larger part, because yeah, it really is a jolt of energy each time you see him, even if he's just sitting there reading.
Yeah, I know. That says something too. A shot of him reading elevates this film.
I really noticed like that about him, because he is so electric, but I was happy to see that Van Damme was not completely sleepwalking through this and did turn on his kind of charm with the winks and stuff like that. But there was a period where even Van Damme wasn't in it as much, and it was just the other kind of supporting characters. And I was starting to, I just hadn't seen a movie of this particular kind of genre, and I don't know. I don't want to belittle it, certainly, but it just the everything was feeling kind of flat to me in terms of like something just wasn't particularly working early on about the performances and the editing or whatever, like whatever sort of alchemy has to coalesce to make something work. It wasn't quite firing on all cylinders for me. And then like there was a simple scenes where like you'd see Dolph, or then like when Van Damme has the scene with where he takes the gun away from one of the other characters we haven't mentioned yet, the female characters. He's just I was struck by the simplicity of the lines, but the just undeniable kind of movie star thing that he has was cutting through, and he was saying things slightly with just the littlest bit of like unique, I don't want to say flair, but I was just like, oh, you know, these guys, they are rarefied beings, you know, whether it's just Dolph and Van Damme with all that they've been through, like physically and everything to build up who they are. But like, yeah, when you see a movie star doing their thing, it's easy to take for granted until it's like put in contrast with, you know, us mortals. And so that was something that stuck out to me at times, where just like you gotta turn those guys loose. And I don't know if they didn't want to as much. Maybe Van Damme didn't want to as much, but I just I wanted some more of that, and there's more of it as the movie goes along, but never quite enough for my taste.
Well, before we get to, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I think the film really does come alive at that particular point when Jean-Claude and Dolph do team up. But before we get to there, there's something else that I noticed that I just want to touch upon, and I don't know if you felt the same way or not, but So Wheeler escapes the interrogation room, and he partners up with someone else who's on the sub. The actress's name is Jasmine Waltz. Okay, Van Damme teams up with her. Her character's name is Cassie Taylor. The character of Cassie Taylor, she has her eyes on becoming a field agent, I guess. Like the character of Melissa, Wheeler's partner at the beginning of the film, she's also old enough to be his daughter. What's fascinating about this particular character is she just has a stunning and flawless makeup job, which is just so odd considering that she's stationed on a submarine. Okay, and maybe it could be because nowadays these films are made with high definition cameras, so it picks up much more. But you see these scenes where it's kind of like, she wants to be a field agent and not a supermodel, huh? Okay.
Right.
You know what I mean?
That bugged me too. That's the one I called the Megan Fox character. And it's like they had a picture of Megan Fox in these movies on the makeup trailer. And then this poor actress came in and they're like, okay, you're going to walk out of the trailer looking like that. She's like, I don't really think that fits my character. Shut up!
Yeah.
Because she's introduced as well in this like state of undress, and I don't know. I'm no prude, but it's creepy. I do appreciate that. I did get slightly invested in her story enough to where like she had things that she wanted, and she was conflicted and had her own kind of motivations. And it wasn't especially like romantic with her and the Van Damme character, and that was nice. And I appreciated, I guess, what she was trying to do, but they didn't give her a lot of leeway to like be a person.
Well, it's so funny that you mentioned Megan Fox, because did you know that she is going to be in Expendables 4, which is coming out next year?
I did not know that, and nor did I know until I heard it on your podcast that Van Damme turned down Expendables 1. That was news to me.
Yeah, he did. But you know what? I mean, I will say, I still think he's like one of the best things about Expendables 2. So it's one of those things where it's like, you know what? I think, in my opinion, I think he made the right call, turning down Expendables 1.
It does seem too with the choices that he make. I think he's. I remember hearing him. I don't know if I told you this, but it was such a revelation to me on the commentary. The one DVD commentary I ever heard him speak on was for Replicant.
I've listened to that as well. Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember? There's the bit where eventually he just gets tired and he's like, "Look, I don't know what you want me to say here. The movie's good. I'm here with my friends." He just like checks out. But before that, at some point, he would keep kind of signing off and it'd be like, "I'll talk to you soon more on Replicant."
Oh yeah.
But the reason I bring it up is because there was one part where he just goes, he basically says, he literally says, "Because I'm bored with movies," and I mean it. Mm-hmm. And if he was bored with movies and not able to kind of find ways to keep himself engaged and pushing forward in ways that, people putting up money for these things or whatever would allow him 20 years ago, it's like, I don't know where he's at now, but that lack of drive is all too apparent in movies like this, unfortunately, to where he only shines through here and there, where he used to be. I think that's what carried all his early movies. He was the guy was like on fire, like from within. He was like filled with this like energy that came through the screen at you. It is no longer there. And Dolph has it more in the subdued way than Van Damme, who's getting a chance to really at least kind of play the hero and get out there and do the running and the kicking and stuff. But he's still kind of, I don't know. It's just like reserved and bored. It's
it's so
say it.
Well, it's funny. It's interesting you mentioned the Replicant commentary, because and this is so sad, David, that I actually remember this. But the one part that I remember the most from that particular commentary is there's the scene where his clone character is in a hotel room with a woman of the night. We will say. Yeah. And so he's talking about that scene where he's, getting ready to kiss that gal. And I remember in that commentary, he's like, "Oh, I moved my hands too soon. I wish I would have waited to move my hands." Like it's,
yeah. He's invested, that I think it's that, and maybe he still is, and it's hard to know, but I think you could tell when people are that invested. Like I remember seeing this, off topic but super brief, but like I remember seeing Stallone on Oprah Winfrey when Rocky V came out. Rocky V was the first Rocky I ever saw because of my age and stuff. And I just remember, to this day, the only thing I can remember about that appearance was they watched a clip and they came back from watching the clip and he's still kind of looking up at it. And Oprah's like, "Well, you seem like you're really like still engaged in the movie." He's like, "You know what it is? I'm just still in the cutting room." I was like, "Oh man, I could have made that cut. Yeah, and you need to have that kind of passion for stuff. Like that kind of passion is always apparent. And that's why you can have somebody like a Van Damme or Dolph Lundgren in a quote unquote bad movie and have them elevate it to the point that they did for so many years of their career. And still, sometimes, and they do in this one. It's just it's not as potent, it's not quite the Universal Soldier super serum. It's more of something else.
Well, I mean, look, we already mentioned it, so let's get there, okay? So Wheeler decides to level the playing field, I guess, and he finally recruits the Marco characters, this is Dolph's character, to assist he and Cassie. I mean, we've already mentioned it, but I think he recruits him way too late in the film. But I guess it's better than nothing. We find out that Marco is German Special Forces, and he was imprisoned on the sub because he knows way too much. And so what's fascinating about their team up, okay, and I don't know if you picked up on this or not, but we get a really cool fight scene where Wheeler, Marco, and Cassie are each fighting one of the commando mercenaries. Okay. And it's actually, I felt fairly decently choreographed, especially the actress playing Cassie. I mean, she is really getting down and, doing these kind of MMA grappling moves with the commando. I mean, it's a really cool scene. And there's that moment where I'm watching it and I'm thinking, like you said, where Van Damme winks at Dolph Lundgren. Okay. So they team up and Van Damme gives Dolph a gun, and Dolph says, "I know I liked you," and then Van Damme kind of winks at him, and there's this moment where it's great. You're watching it, and I'm like, "This is exactly what the movie should be. It should be this kind of Tango and Cash." I'm sure you've seen.
Oh hell yeah!
It should be this Tango and Cash dynamic between the two of them, and you get it. Here's what's interesting: you get it very, very briefly, but what's interesting is they part ways immediately after. And that's the one thing that I did not understand is they get out of this situation and then Dolph is like, "All right, if you need anything else, you know where to find me." And he just leaves. And you're like, "What? No, come back, please. Be the Cash to the Tango."
Oh yeah. God, that would have changed everything. It would have been so great.
There is one slightly humorous scene where it's right in the same scene of the film, but where Dolph commandeers one of the commandos' radios.
Yes, this is the
right.
best. This is the best scene in the movie for me.
Do you know why it's the best? It's because we're getting this is a Tango and Cash dynamic here.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
It's fun.
Yeah, so he's helping Jean-Claude fake his own injury and death, so he keeps, punching him in the stomach, and, Van Damme is groaning over the radio, and you're watching it, and yeah, it's like, this is what we wanted to see. When you hear that these two guys are going to be on the same side, and they're reuniting, this is what it should be, and sadly, there's just not enough of it, especially, like I said, how Dolph just dips out of the film. He literally just, is like, "All right, you need me again. You know where to find me." I guess he's going back to his cell to continue reading.
All right. Yeah. Oh, man.
Are you okay?
Yeah. I mean, good call in the blood.
Dax, do you read? Dax, do you copy? Dax! Taking fire! Taylor's down!
Taylor's down! Incoming!
We gotta get over there. Wait. So we have eyes on Wheeler.
Taking fire! Advancing! I got a visual. He's down. He's hurt. Say hi, asshole.
Fuck you.
What about the prisoner?
No longer an issue.
Get him up to the mess hall. Good work, man.
Should we call it in the roads?
No. I don't trust that son of a bitch. I need to talk to Wheeler first.
Let me just say, I want the phrase "a Tango and Cash moment" to be a thing that catches on and that people say far and wide. That was great.
I guess we can get to the giant twist at the end. I don't know if it surprised you or not. We find out that Van Damme's partner at the beginning of the film, also his love interest, Ballard, she was in fact the mole in the agency. She was the one working for the other side, and she gets a really fun evil line when this is revealed. She looks at she looks at Jean-Claude's character and she says, "Well, the sex wasn't bad." And as a viewer, you're just like, "Ooh, no."
No. That is so cringeworthy. She just seems so young. It's upsetting.
And the other thing I wanted to get your opinion on, okay, I mean, because yeah, there's a final shootout that that occurs. Okay. Just like, and it's really no different than any of the other 20 shootouts that we saw earlier. I will say the lead who kind of takes the lead for Patrick Kilpatrick is pretty bland. I didn't find him very intimidating at all. But Wheeler does get off the submarine, and he is now partnered with the Cassie Taylor character. They're debriefed at the Pentagon, and we know, David, that this is the Pentagon because we get an exterior shot of the Pentagon, which I'm assuming is stock footage. But they become partners at the end.
I liked that. I was surprised by that little. I just enjoyed the sort of light dynamic of it, and seeing Van Damme and his little, like, purple tinted glasses and stuff. I don't know. I found that. Oh, because this was way back early in the movie, but I want to make sure I got this right, because this took me out of it. Well, it took me a while to realize, but when he escapes from that interrogation chair, doesn't he break his thumb to do it?
Yeah.
So he's like the whole movie with a broken thumb. He didn't seem like he stubbed his toe. Like, it affected him in no way, which is preposterous.
Well, maybe he's like Martin Riggs, right? Where he's able to kind of dislocate it and then pop it back in.
That's right. Well, that I like. I would have loved to have seen a little scene where he does the thing. Maybe people are laying bets and he just slams it. Dolph's laying bets. Oh, there's so many missed opportunities in this movie for Tango and Cash moments, Riggs and Murtaugh moments. But now he's got a new partner with the Megan Fox. I don't know what her name is, but I'd watch that sequel. I'd love to see him paired up in a buddy cop movie of any kind. And this actress and him, I'd watch Blackwater too, if that's what it was. You get Dolph still out there, as we find out.
Well, Dolph is still out there. Here's what I don't want to see in the sequel. Okay, so this is the scene right before the credits roll. So Marco promises Jean-Claude before he leaves the film, or not entirely, but before he after he teams up with Van Damme and they kind of have their scuffles and then they part ways. Okay, way too soon. All right, he tells Van Damme, "Well, I'll help you out. I got your back. I'll do a favor for you, if you will." And so what he does is he tracks down the Ballard character. Okay, she's overseas in a South American country trying to get away. He tracks her down, and he just point blank shoots her as she's in the car. And this, I don't know if you felt this way or not, but this was dark, and it really kind of disturbed me. It was, first of all, I think it was very mean-spirited, but it was also kind of out of character for his character for that to occur. And so you see that, and it's kind of like, whoa, like that's way too dark, considering like Tango and Cash didn't do that. You know what I mean? They wouldn't kill a woman point blank who isn't, you know what I mean, not posing a threat. I don't know.
I think they set his character up to be the kind of guy that would do that. Like, maybe they said things about him like that, but his actual behavior and demeanor and the limited things we did get to see him do on screen, it didn't seem as though he was like a sociopath like that. And so, and especially after the lighthearted scene with, or I don't know if it happened right before that or after that, but it was right around the thing with the new partner and stuff in the Pentagon. It was odd to have that dark turn. It did feel like a weird tonal shift.
Well, one of the final things I will say about this film is, while it does have a few problems in terms of the narrative and the overall rollout of the conceit, I guess we can say, if you look at the production behind it, I will say the film is not ugly. I don't think in any kind of way, in terms of the looks of it. Okay. We've seen, if you go through the podcast, in any of the previous episodes, a lot of these films are just filmed so cheaply with such little resources and such limited sets that you would think a film like this would just be screaming cheap at every corner. This, I will feel, it still looks fairly polished and pretty good. I guess in reading about it and doing a little bit of research, the director, the person who's credited as the director, is a gentleman by the name of Pasha Patriki. In reality, I guess he was actually the cinematographer. This film was actually directed by a gentleman by the name of Alan Unger. Okay, this was the one who helmed the film. However, due to contractual reasons, his name is not listed as the director. But regardless, I will say it still looks a little bit better than any of the other cheapy productions we've seen these guys do.
Yeah, and I know I give a little shit for looking like a disco with all the different gel colored lights on the ship, but I think I would have enjoyed it. It would have affected my mood and the overall tone if it was like a really, stark, almost black and white type, or all of the what a submarine is likely to look like, and people are likely to be dressed like, etc. Like they did go out of their way to make it look interesting and cool. and it does. And even just the fact that they did get out of the submarine and those flashbacks and stuff like that was a surprise to me. And it had a greater scope in some ways than I thought it would coming in. And yeah, I mean, I think overall I just enjoyed it more than I thought I would from not knowing anything or seeing the trailer or anything, just kind of thinking I knew what it was going to be like. It did exceed my expectations on a number of levels.
All right. Well, here we are, David. Again, I just want to say thank you again for agreeing to this and coming back, man. I know I broached the topic with you back when we discussed Regeneration a couple years ago, but here we are. Okay. I know you had never seen this film before, so thank you for checking it out. I'm curious, how did you check it out? I know it's available on a few streaming services. Is it Freevee in YouTube, or how did you watch it?
I ended up ordering a Blu-ray of it because I was hoping there might be a little behind the scenes or commentary or something, and I couldn't quite figure out one way or the other. So I just decided I would order it because it was on Prime forever, and now it's not.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure where you can see it, but I got a disc.
Right on. Well, there you go. You have another one to add to your collection. You're welcome.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I do. Thank you. And I don't think I didn't talk to you till after I watched that Universal Soldier. Was it Regeneration? What comes after that one? What's the next one that
Day of Reckoning?
Like really weird. I actually liked Day of Reckoning. I thought it was pretty interesting and cool. And I think when we talked, you were like, I don't know if you're going to be into that, but I was actually. I thought it was really fascinating and.
Yeah.
But anyway, so
pretty bold direction for them to take that franchise. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And if he's going to be a little, catatonic, Van Damme, there was some interesting use of it there. And I hadn't seen much Scott Adkins really prior to that, other than just like what he showed up in Van Damme's other films. And I really enjoyed that. In fact, I also really enjoyed. I think it was you that turned me on to the Scott Adkins conversations on YouTube over the lockdown stuff with Dolph and all kinds of other people. And I was bummed Van Damme didn't show up there. I don't know why that is, but But anyway, so sorry, getting far afield as I want to do. But I appreciate you having me. I don't think I've ever spoke to a real person about the replicant commentary before, so that was a special moment for me.
Yeah, no,
yeah. I get many people to listen, but I don't think anyone ever takes me up on it.
You ever want to do a watch along, man? Just let me know, and we'll set it up. All right. So, in your opinion, what do you think? Okay, as a fan of Van Damme, as a fan of Dolph, okay, what would you say about this film? Get a recommend on either of those levels, as an action movie, as a Van Damme film. What do you think?
Oh, I would say I'm pretty out of touch in terms of modern action movies, so I'm not sure how it stacks up there. But I think if you're a Van Damme completist, it's worth checking out. I mean, it's not the such a terrible way to put it. It's not. I thought it was going to be a little bit of a chore, and I ended up being pleasantly surprised at how it was engaged with it. It was fun to see Dolph take this tiny character and make it interesting and fun. And I'm not one to do this, but if you fast forward through movies, that might be a way to to just see the fun parts. So I wouldn't. Yeah. I don't know. I couldn't give it a wholehearted recommend, but it if you're going through these guys chronology or filmography. It's going to be more fun than you think.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, well put. Yeah, I'm right there with you to an extent. I think if you're a fan of either Lundgren or Van Damme, then I think, yeah, definitely check this out, because I think the sheer novelty and gimmick of seeing them on screen together and this time fighting on the same side is a blast to see. While it's unfortunately they're not on screen nearly enough, it almost comes off as a wasted opportunity as a result. But that one scene where they are together, I think that right there is worth the price of admission. Okay, I don't think it's one that you're going to go back to as often, like Universal Soldier, and that's not to mitigate the film really. But I mean, if you look at the Universal Soldier, that was a film that put these two guys together when they were in their prime. Okay, so it's very difficult to compete with that. I think as a film in general, I don't think it's terrible. Okay, the production values are decent, especially for this genre. We've seen much, much worse, I will say. The fight scenes are pretty fun. The action sequences are all well done. Unfortunately, with it, I will say there is not one original aspect to this film. Okay, the flash drive MacGuffin, we've seen that millions of times. The submarine setting, we've seen... Yeah, the dongle, sorry. The submarine setting, we've seen that dozens of times. The turncoat CIA operative, okay? These are all standard tropes of action films, mainly the direct-to-video genre. And sadly, because of all this, I don't think it's going to stand the test of time as either a Dolph Lundgren vehicle or a Jean-Claude Van Damme vehicle, or even really an action movie in general. I think this is kind of one that... I mean, here it is. We're 4 years removed from it already at this point, and it's kind of become a little bit forgotten, hasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely not even top 20 Van Damme movies for me.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I know it wasn't top 20. It's not top 20 Dolph either. I did, as usual, have a wonderful time chatting with you, so thank you so very much for agreeing to come back on with me. Before I let you go, I'd love to give you a chance to plug anything that you're working on. If you want to give a shout out to anything that you've seen, I guess, recently, what's going on?
Oh, wow. The scene really jumped out at me. But I think in terms of the audience of the podcast, the only thing that really makes a lot of sense is just to, if you're not too turned off by my kind of spastic enthusiasm for the muscles from Brussels. There's more of that on these sort of guest appearances I've done on the Jean-Claude Van Damme cast, which you could get to. So if you go to my website, which is davidullman.net/podcast, and scroll down, you'll see those things kind of embedded along with my I Must Break This podcast appearances. And so that's, I guess, what I would recommend. I mean, on that podcast page, links to my the 100 episodes we did of the Long Walk Short Drink podcast, which is not particularly time sensitive. So that might be fun too, depending on your interest. But it's a real pleasure for me to get to talk to someone who's passionate and interested about these things. And you do such a nice job, Sean, with this podcast. It's a real honor for me to get to be a part of it.
Well, yeah, thank you. And you also have, I mean, I don't want to let this go, but you have a music career, right? And so anybody can check out and download your tunes, right?
Yeah, I did just, so I haven't been super active recently, but I just finished participating in an album. So my last name is Ullman, spelled Ullman. But I've made a lot of music with my brother producing and playing guitar with me, so Ullman Brothers. And my dad and his brother were in a band in the 60s. And just recently, over the last few years, my brother produced a collection of songs that we put out under the name The Ullman Boys, called Family Album. And it's just us four Ullman Brothers playing these songs together, some of them cover songs and a few originals. And I've been doing a lot of storytelling around that, kind of that couple generations of Ullman Brothers making music together. That I did this 5.5 hour interview with my dad and uncle and my brother. And I learned so many interesting things. And I've just been kind of working with that story here the last month or so. And so that's all on the website as well. But thank you. Yeah. Thanks for pointing that out.
Have you written a song yet about the muscles from Brussels?
No, not yet. But, I tend to write sort of overly earnest and serious things, I guess, sometimes. Though I do have an old goofy song called Mullet Man. But there is a song that I came across about him, and I think it's called Bloodsport and Kickboxer 2, like Tooo. And I want to say that the artist is Ukulele, kind of a play off the word ukulele. And it is such a fun song. If you can't find it on your own and you do end up going to davidullman.net, hit the contact thing and just say, I want that JCVD song, and I'll send it to you. Because the song is essentially a celebration of the man, but also a bit of a discussion about how Bloodsport and Kickboxer are kind of the same movie. It is so fun. I wish I'd written that song.
Maybe I'll play that actually at the end of the episode. Actually.
So you guys are in for a treat.
Yeah, if you don't mind sending that to me. Because I was thinking, I don't know, have you seen Chris Pratt did a song about sudden death that was on the show Parks and Recreation?
I didn't find out about that until much more recently than it happened. But yeah, that's a great gem too.
Right on. Yeah. Well, yes, go ahead and email that to me and I'll put that at the end. So
you bet. I got it downloaded somewhere.
Well, David, thank you very, very much. It's a pleasure as always. To everyone out there who is listening, please feel free to rate and review the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever else you go to subscribe. We appreciate the reviews, and we'll see you all next time on I Must Break This Podcast.
He'd have the eye of the tiger if it weren't for the powder. Kick your nuts into your guts and mash it all into a chowder. He's a bad MF. Just watch him do the splits. And ladies, shield your eyes when he's killing with his hits. Don't let the accent fool you, 'cause he ain't no fool. Nickname Muscles from Brussels means he's pretty Van Damme cool. His clothes may be out of fashion, but how they do show off his curves. Some people make fun of his acting. What nerve. I know it's a different movie, but I have to bring it up. That drunken dancing fight scene deserves the Cinema's World Cup. Is that scene supposed to crack me up? 'Cause it really, really does. Jean-Claude Van Damme is the greatest Belgian action movie star there ever was. Don't let the accent fool you, 'cause he ain't no fool. Nickname Muscles from Brussels means he's pretty Van Damme cool. His clothes may be out of fashion, but how they do show off his curves. Some people make fun of his acting. What nerve. It's amazing what he's done and only amplified his fame to make two different movies which are identically the same. Okay, Bloodsport has the kumite, and Kickboxer has broken glass on fists. I've watched these movies so many times, I hate to think of all the other great stuff I've missed. Don't let the accent fool you, 'cause he ain't no fool. Nickname Muscles from Brussels means he's pretty Van Damme cool. His clothes may be out of fashion, but how they